Continuing on. So, God, sovereign, and free. So Lisa Renee says, God is perfect, perfect and flawless, and is always evolving. The unknowable. We'll never know. It's too big. It's too freaking big. Even when we go back to source and so many things are revealed, there is still motion. Still motion and life keeping it all going. There are things that we will never know. There is the unknown. We may or may not know some of those things eventually. And the known, where we are now. So no, Lisa, you're a part of God. For sure. We all are. But you aren't God itself. You're not flawless. You've hurt people. You've done some awful things out of some unconscious action. Awful. But who cares? You can be forgiven just like anybody can be forgiven. I've been forgiven for doing awful things to people. Everybody can. So this is what I'm sending out to that community. Just start saying something. This isn't right. Something isn't right. And Lisa, what about Sean Keogh? What's this all about? He's on YouTube and whatnot, talking about these people that you have maybe had a part in their suicide. What's up with that? What's your response, Lisa? Am I just some dark alien here to just fuck shit up? So talk to people. And like I said, people from your own inner circle, even people who sleep in your bed, say dissenting things about you and just comment that sometimes you're a little off. Some people have said, you know what? There are some things that Lisa just doesn't want to hear. So what I'm curious about, those people have known you for so long, if those people are actually saying it to you. So if they're saying it to you, and those conversations are happening behind closed doors, why don't you get a little bit more vulnerable with the community? I've heard you talk about, I remember one time you mentioned a mistake and you got some learning that you're doing in leadership. Aren't the things I'm presenting to you mistakes? So all I'm saying is stop talking to other people about me and people that I love and talk to me or talk to them. Be honest with yourself. If you're going around whispering in all these people's ears this particular story that you're not sharing with the people who are involved, you're a liar. You're a liar. Just let that sink in. It's wrong. It's super wrong. And you're turning people against us who love us. You are making them think that we are the bad guys only to control the narrative that makes you feel secure. When you are turning people against me and the people that I love to make yourself feel secure. That's insane. It's insane. I know you're all galactic and everything, but you got a phone. Yeah, you got a phone. So all these things that you're talking about, all these rumors that you're spreading, talk to the people involved. Because if you don't, you're a liar. You're a straight up liar. In life, oh yeah, because you talked about the founding fathers not too long ago and those principles, but you don't let people face their accusers. You're the accuser. Do I get to face my accuser? I tried to talk to you. sovereign. As far as I know, because you've said so, Lisa, you pay taxes. You're not sovereign. This is the difference between Highfalutin Talk and what's actually happening on planet Earth. Speaking of planet Earth, I remember being at your place and seeing all the dead plants that weren't being taken care of. For someone who claims to love the planet and be connected to elementals and whatnot, what's up with your plants? Why are your plants dead? Now, people kill plants. I've killed plants. But when you're creating this persona that you are God, wouldn't God be surrounded by beauty? Wouldn't God have this amazing relationship with the plants in their life? All these things are just incongruous. It doesn't add up. And the difference between an actual community is that you source these things within the community. It doesn't mean that you have to talk to everyone in the community every day. I understand it having an inner circle. That makes sense. And yes, that is a mystery school. A mystery school will initiate people because once you start learning more and more about life and the way that things work, there is actual danger. Actual danger. So you want people around you that you can trust. But, and this is the initiation for the leader, you're not exempt. You're going to get tested too. But what you don't allow is the initiation of yourself. You always think that you're the one. And if you don't, if you're more humble behind closed doors than you are in some of these situations, tell somebody. Tell me. Pick up the phone and tell me what you think of me. Tell me what all those stories are that you're passing around the community and turning all these people against me. Because if you don't, you're a liar. And all that you're doing is perpetuating the narrative in your community to make yourself feel safe, because some of the people who love you the most can see you the clearest. And what happens with these people who can see Lisa the clearest? She kicks them out. She demonizes them and she kicks them out. And there are some people, some great navigators in that community. I shouldn't put it in that way. People have different paths. For some people, some of the people in the community whose place it is, who just feel guided just to be there and to hold space for Lisa Renee. And yes, there's bona fide information and beautiful things happening and coming in. It's not their place to speak up. I mean, their place as far as they don't feel guided to do it. I feel guided to speak. And when I was in the community, I felt guided to speak out. And so I did, and I got kicked out. And other people, the same. They felt guided to be more vocal, and they got kicked out. And we were right about so many things. We were seeing things so clearly. We saw this one, particular admin that got booted at some point, and we all saw that coming when people, just thought we were crazy. That wouldn't happen. So, free. God's sovereign and free. You're not free. You're not free if you're doing this. You're not free if you're making these stories up and turning our friends against us. That's freedom. You're not free when you've got people around you who are sycophants, who are terrified to speak up to you because you're the channel. You're the main channel. We're going to get into this more in depth because this is another place where just things don't add up with Lisa. Lisa's starting to talk about Arthur. And starting to talk about Arthur as a real person. King Arthur was not a real person, Lisa. King Arthur was the teacher who was Jesus at the time of Jesus. Those stories are allegories for what was happening at the time of Jesus. This can be proven historically. And Ralph Ellis is one of the most amazing researchers who can prove this. There may not even been a dark age, but yeah, Arthur was not a real person. Arthur was Jesus. They couldn't tell the stories of what actually was happening with Jesus at the time, so they had to create an allegory to hide it because they couldn't talk about it. When the Templars got to Syria, the Templars found these texts. They found the historical text of Jesus himself, King Jesus. Small caveat, we're going to need to parse these things because there is the King Jesus that we can prove. He was king of the world because his bloodlines were Persian, Roman, and Egyptian. That would have been the known universe at the time. If you were from those three bloodlines and you can sit on a throne, you literally ruled the world. That's what it means to be king of the world. And yes, we have to separate actual king and we have to separate whoever or whomever, as far as multiple teachers, were teaching ascension teachings at the time, teaching Gnostic things at the time. We're going to talk more about Gnostic. There's the good and bad of that. That'll be another thing. But if there was one teacher or multiple teachers teaching at the time and how those stories were meshed together, because obviously there seems to be more of a robe and sandals kind of Jesus that everyone is familiar with, as opposed to the Jesus who was mobilizing armies. Armies, okay? That's actually in the Bible. That's actually in Matthew. And at some point, even though I've already read, I've at least read the New Testament and most of the Old Testament, but I'm going to go back through, I'm going to read them again, and so that we can go over all these things and we line by line as far as those texts are concerned, and also, you know, pointing out discrepancies in the text, and I'll be studying more in language and whatnot, so we can talk about some of those things. Ralph Ellis studies like 16 Bibles and finds these incongruous things in there. So, what I believe is happening with Lisa in particular, and I think this happens in many spiritual communities, especially ascension communities. I say ascension communities because then there's always some sort of extraterrestrial aspect of it. So Lisa is bringing through bona fide information, but because of this little kooky thing that she has hanging out, she's got this little blind spot. And so then she's saying some of these things. She's picking up things that aren't real. There was no King Arthur. Every one of those characters, everything that the books talk about, it's all an allegory for what was happening with Jesus at the time. And we can prove it. So no, Lisa, you're not free. You're actually spreading harmful information at times. Like, I've got respect for you. You're in the arena. You are a woman in the arena. So I respect you for that, and I respect you for many of the pieces that you brought to me. And let me just share another thing that you know, Lisa gave me a reading, you know, at the beginning, which was really supportive to me at the time. You know, for, you know, some people are familiar with this, others not, but just basically, you know, I mean, psychic reading, basically. But they're just intuitive readings, and they can be really supportive. I do them for people. You know, sometimes in my sessions we just move into those naturally, or meditation or whatever. These things, you know, people don't necessarily just want to learn about bacteria, or people don't want to learn about business or something, or many of the more just sort of basic things that I do. You know, people want to go there. People want that awakening experience, or people want that support, or people want that information. But I'm always saying, hey, this is intuitive information, especially if it's getting really galactic, especially if we're talking about the Guardians and all these things. If we're going there, you have to, you can't prove any of that. Just like, this is my experience, this is what's coming in, which brings me to an interesting point, another thing that Lisa says that's completely incongruous. And thank you, Lisa. You're in the arena, You're bearing your soul as much as you can, and we can talk about these things. Anyone who takes on a public persona is, oh, that's what we're trying to do. We can actually handle it. We can handle whatever criticisms are going to come our way. And Lisa, in my first session, you talked about this time in my life. So kudos. This is the time in my life where I'm coming out more public, and when that happens, because it happened to you when you became public, you had to be ready for the criticism. But what you didn't do is when the criticism came from people who cared about you, you shunned them. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. And some of the people that are closest to Lisa are just snarky as hell. As hell. It's crazy. And some of those snarky folks, they say that Lisa just doesn't want to see particular things. Like Lisa isn't particularly clear on this thing. So I'm not going to mention any names other than Lisa, because she has chosen to be public. She is a public figure. There's no slander or anything. This is my experience with her in the community. But I will talk about things that have been said. Now, if it was someone who's a friend, I'm not even going to mention them. But if it's someone who's turned on me, or someone who's one of these people like talking this shit, like, sorry, like you're fair game, like you're not engaging in any sort of honest discussion, so we're just going to talk about it. So one of those people in Lisa's inner circle said that. You're just like, there's some things about Lisa that don't add up. So when I was spending time with that person, we'd talk about it. And it's like, yeah, that's a little off, that doesn't. But that person is just completely starstruck by Lisa. I said we were gonna be, I was hanging out with this person, and we were gonna be where Lisa lived at the time. I said, hey, let's call Lisa up and see if she wants to hang out. And she's like, whoa, I don't know, she might be. And it's just like, Lisa's just a person. like think about that. Like the hierarchy, or in that community, what you're less than? You're not worthy to hang out with the great Lisa Renee? It was crazy. I'm a pretty confident person. I've got my own insecurities that I'm working on, sure, but Lisa is an equal. And this is, part of Lisa's thing is she tries to just stay just enough above the community, and not in a natural way, in an unconscious way, so that she's in control. So many, and then in the process, when I was talking about, I'd bring these particular things out to Lisa in the community when I was in the community, especially at the end, when it was really about to come to a head. I practice African spiritual traditions. It's a huge part of my life. And I would mention them, and then Lisa would post something about like animal sacrifice and like all these things, as if, that's all that these traditions were all about. And I'm actually going to make a note, because that's something that we're going to talk about. We're going to clarify some of those things in the African traditions and some of the things that I experienced there. So it was crazy. She was starstruck. It was just like, didn't think she was worthy enough to spend time in the master's house. It was just crazy. And then what I saw, and sorry, I don't know, how public this person is, but I gotta say, maybe I won't mention you by name, but you've just completely talked smack about me, so I just gotta put you in there for context. Her husband was terrified of her. Terrified. Granted, he's been through a lot. Granted, he's fucked up a lot, and she really supported him through a lot of that. Great. Beautiful. We do that in relationships. That's a sacred thing. Like to have someone in your life that, even though you hurt them, will still be there for you. Provided obviously it doesn't, they're willing to heal and they don't want just to be a vampire. That's sacred. But then, and this happens with men and women, the person who was more of the abuser becomes a sycophant because they're afraid to lose the person who held space for them. And I've experienced that personally as well. And that's the thing in all these situations. Look at what I'm saying. I would talk to these people about this. I would have talked to all these people about this 8 years ago. I was there. But I know what it's like to see this collective circling of the wagons to pinpoint the scapegoat and then get the scapegoat out of there, and then everyone feels good. You didn't cast out any demons. You only strengthen the demons in your own community because there were all the shadows that you weren't willing to face. So rather than everyone's shadows coming into the middle and everyone healing it together, you just made them stronger. And why? You're broadcasting that Arthur was a real person. He wasn't. And this is what happens. And this is what happens when you don't actually engage in an actual community like the round table. Round table meaning there's no leader. There's no leader. In a round table, you do have an inner circle, which is understandable. Some people have more experience than others. Some people are more mentally stable. Some people are more emotionally stable. Some people are more successful. All these things. It makes sense. It's just a thing. I own a business. I'm the boss of my business. I try to run it as much as a round table as I can. But when it comes time to make a decision, because it's my name on all the forms, it's my decision. So there are all these people at the round table, and then on a higher level, you have their soul family and all these things spreading out for them. So how can this all be a true round table, which Lisa says she's such a big fan of, if it's only one stream going on there? And Lisa, if there isn't one stream, if you really had that round table where everyone is involved, I like to hear that, because I was in the community and I saw for sure that wasn't happening. And if you're still talking shit about us, if you're still talking shit about me and the people that I love, I know that's not happening. And that's not a community. That's not a trusted inner circle. That's a sycophantic circle jerk. Okay. So let's stop that as a segment. I'll take a pause and we'll get back to it.